That's a good point.
And it looks like we are live. Guys, give me just a second here. First off, to catch my breath because I'm so excited. It's been a couple of weeks since I've been here, and I do appreciate our guy Nick Kendall for subbing in for me last week. But we got to get everybody else in the chat here as well, our Facebook groups over there, and make sure that everybody here with the Mile High Huddle community is in with us. Mile High, hello, everybody, Broncos country. Welcome into another episode of the Del Valley Deep Divers podcast. I am your host, Lance Sanderson, and joining me as per usual is my good friend and colleague. He is Mile High Huddle senior NFL draft analyst, the one and only Erick Trickel. Dude, do we want to talk the Miami Dolphins game? Like, do we actually want to?
Yes.
Do we want to?
There are points about that game that I think are worth making even all these days later. Like,
yeah, an embarrassment, man. An absolute and complete utter embarrassment. I've heard some hot takes. I've watched a little bit of the tape. I didn't get all the way through the all 22. I watched most of the game on the playback. I had a family trip last weekend, so I didn't get to watch it live. But what I saw was definitely not encouraging. Now, how are you doing? First things first. Let's get into that here in just a second.
Good. Tired as always. Football season's underway. NFL, college, been trying to get some college stuff done, but this week was just a complete mess. Got an issue with our car that we had to get fixed and taken care of. Have some health issues going on with people in my family. Like,
same,
just a lot that's going on. Which of course has to come after the 70-20 shellacking that the Broncos just took. Like, in a game where, and I had a tweet thread about it, how everybody wants to just point fingers at the defense, or one person or one element to it. Like, you lost the game 70-20. You turned the ball over 3 times on offense and scored 13 points on offense.
Mm-hmm.
Your offense isn't blameless here. Your offense has scored 15 points in the second half. Your offense isn't blameless for being 0-3. Yes, granted, the defense is absolutely terrible. Everybody knows that. Defense absolutely got their butt handed to them by the Miami Dolphins. A lot of that, there's a lot of talk about how bad the talent is on defense, which is an issue. There is a lack of talent on this defense. But a lot of it is on Vance Joseph. When watching the game over and you're seeing your defensive coordinator calling plays that are third and long coverage calls, when you're going against a team as fast as the Broncos or as the Dolphins are, and they're lining up in 21 personnel on 1st and 10, it isn't just a talent issue. Your coach has no clue when to call these proper coverages. These are coverages that are designed specifically and typically called specifically for third and longs, or in situations where you're up by so many points and the team's just passing the ball. Why is it that way? Because you have your corners. They're playing to the boundary, meaning they're turning their backs to the center of the field. They're trying to push the wide receivers to the boundary. You have your linebackers who are basically doing the same thing. You're trying to push everything outside of the middle of the field, which means that you are turning your back towards where the ball is, which helps open up so many lanes against the run because you don't have your linebackers crashing down. Unlike the second play of the game, they did that crack toss play. Unlike the second play of the game, Denver's lined up. It's 1st and 10. Denver's lined up specifically in one of these coverages. It's a coverage 2-man with the shading to the boundary. And your safeties are playing extra deep in this coverage for some reason. Instead of the standard deepness that you have, they're playing extra deep, which again, that's part of what makes it such a third and long pass call anyways. And by the time the running back gets back to the line of scrimmage with the ball, your safeties are just now finishing their back pedal into their zone. Because they're just dropping into the zone. They're letting it play. They're so deep that you can't initially, it's a little bit harder to see where the ball is, what they're doing offensively. So you're just getting baited to drop your guys back and then running the ball. Like, I don't get what Vance Joseph was doing with his calls in this game. It makes no sense. And it's not just this game. It's been all 3 games. Talent issue, yes, it's there on defense. There is no arguing against that. But people are underestimating how badly of a job Vance Joseph is doing. with what talent he does have.
So after going back and watching the little bit of the game that I did get to watch, everything opened up because, like you said, they're vacating and just pushing everything to the outside and leaving everything over the middle of the field open. The only thing that makes sense to me is like, we're not going to get beat on the outside. We're not going to get beat deep. We're just going to open up everything and then flow tackle to the ball carrier and not let them beat us with shots. But then you just realize, like, you underestimated the speed of the Miami Dolphins offense. Devon Achan, you've got Raheem Mostert, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle didn't play, but all of the speed that they had, you're just going to give them all this open space to operate and then outrun your terrible angles with the lack of talent that you have on your defense. It was the worst game plan. I watched the first quarter and a half on the all-22. I couldn't do it anymore. It's like, this is the worst thing I've ever seen. Denver got obliterated in terms of just the scheme of what they ran up front. It was horrible. They wanted to keep everything in front of them, and then when they couldn't keep it in front of them because you were terrible effort, the effort and tackling from this team was horrible. Horrible. I've never seen so many guys just reach out and try to arm tackle guys, slip off the backside, and just lay on the ground and watch guys run by them. It happened 10 times at least. You cannot do that. You have to play when you have speed. You've got to you have to disrupt the timing. Speed is so much of a big part of the timing of an offensive system. And if you're just going to let that speed get flowing and let them start running, you can't catch up. They were scared of speed, and it burned them in the ass.
Yeah, and I defended Vance Joseph during the offseason because I wasn't expecting this. I was looking at what he did in Arizona, minus last year where they absolutely just they were about as bad on defense with injuries as the Broncos were. They just got decimated defensively last year.
Mm-hmm.
But the analytics for Vance Joseph as a defensive coordinator during his time in Arizona were still good. They were pretty much top 10 consistently in DVOA. They were a good defense. And they didn't have much talent there.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that the excuse for him now in Denver? This is something that always bothers me. If you're going to give somebody if you're going to look at what somebody did elsewhere and look at the talent they have and realize, and you got to look at, you have to. The Arizona Cardinals were not nearly as talented on defense during Vance Joseph's tenure as they are now, and they have a lack of talent now. So why does he get this pass where it's not his fault? And part of the issues too is that you're having a point where there's going to be locker room issues because of this, because he is not calling the plays to his players' strengths. So firing him, will it make a significant change in what we get out of the defense? Probably not. Will we see some slight improvements? I think so, which is why it's worth doing it. We'll see what happens this week. There's a lot of comments here in the chat that I want to get to.
Yes.
A lot of things to talk about still. Real quick, there's one comment here that I got to go back and find because I thought it was an excellent comment just right when we were going live.
So go ahead and grab that. I'm gonna grab this one from Stu really fast because we got a super chat from Zeus jumping off the top rope here. Stu, good to see you in the chat. $20 super chat. We definitely appreciate your support, man. Saying hi all. Hello, Stu, and thank you for joining us. Thank you all for joining us. Go ahead and grab your comment, Eric.
So Zach Powers came in, and we saw this just as you hit live, and I was like, that's actually a really good point and one I want to touch on specifically for this Bears game. Zach Powers says, I think not having Josie to keep everyone aligned and knowing what they were doing up front made the difference in the run game last week. We'll touch on that here in just a second when it comes to last week. Speed was still a problem, but knowing what you're doing helps. Yes and no. Not having Josie Jewell up there, it's not so much about keeping people aligned. At this point, everybody should know where they are supposed to line up at.
Mm-hmm.
And it's on the defensive coordinator to call the correct play to make sure they're in the way that they can use their strengths to the best of their abilities, and not see a complete collapse. The issue was, I think, with losing Josie was that you lost the highest football IQ you have on the field and your main communicator between your front and your secondary in Josie Jewell. Alex Singleton, he's a fine run defender, but he isn't that great when he has to think a whole lot. He is very much a see ball, chase ball linebacker, and he does it really well.
Mm-hmm.
You have them think against play action, you have them think against options, and that's where you can see things muddy up a little bit or play in coverage. Josie Jewell, at least he's got that IQ. He can help, and he helps read that and helps with the communication aspect. Against the Bears, if they really start utilizing RPOs in their offense, which for some stupid reason they haven't been doing a whole lot, you have Alex Singleton, who we just talked about, and Drew Sanders, who has barely played and only really played as much as he did last week because of the injury to Josie Jewell.
Mm-hmm.
Those are your two guys that are going to be your main points of communication and the main guys responsible for making sure with with doing the right reads, making sure the defense isn't getting blown up by these RPOs. And not just RPOs, defensive linemen, they have a big part in screens as well, but so do linebackers, making sure they're reading it and going out and chasing it and trying to blow it up. Another thing that the Bears do extremely well, losing Josie Jewell, I think this week, I don't want to say it causes the Broncos to lose. I think this is a game that they should still win. We'll see what they can do, but it makes it a little bit more difficult with what he does bring to the defense.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And like you said, a big part of that is just identifying what's going up front. Let's jump back to the chat really fast. I just want to say hello to some people that we've got. Keyshawn Hood is a new name in here. Zach Powers, Rodney Garcia, Peter Middleton over there in Singapore, Todd Ostendorf, Rodney Garcia. Just want to say hello to everybody that's joining us here on a wonderful Friday evening. Thank you to everybody for joining us. And I know it kind of makes it a little choppy there, but Eric does a great job of creating the perfect segue into our topic. As we customarily do here on Dove Valley Deep Divers, we like to go deep into the tape. We like to find out these critical matchups that for either side. This year we're doing, for me this week, I have critical matchups that the Chicago Bears should be able to win. And this week for the offense, like Eric just said, Justin Fields versus this linebacker core, specifically against a guy like Alex Singleton, and specifically a guy like Drew Sanders. And what you were talking about just there, identifying your run fits, identifying the misdirection, the read option stuff, split flow zones, and identifying what your run fits are supposed to be. Losing Josie Jewell, and it's unspecified. I was actually pulling up the injury report as you were talking about that. He was did not participate in either Wednesday or Thursday practice. I have not seen a Friday practice report yet. It's still
for
not
Josie Jewell.
Yeah, for Josie Jewell,
he's out. Mike Purcell, he's out. Frank Clark, he's out.
Okay, so you've got information that I did not have. So with Josie Jewell out, this is a big play, especially with Drew Sanders, because when you watch what Drew Sanders did last week in terms of, I don't want to say he was watching the game come to him, but at the same time, it almost looked exactly like that. He just looked so lost out there. The misdirection plays, he was just watching everything, reading and reacting, and he was not just a half a step late, 2.5 steps late to try to react to what was going on around him. Justin Fields, the crazy thing about what Chicago is doing offensively right now is they aren't utilizing Justin Fields and his ability to run the football the way that they need to. What happened last season and down the stretch was phenomenal with Justin Fields. He was rushing the ball for damn near 85 yards a game, it seemed like. I know it was really close to that number. And this year, I watched the Tampa Bay game. I watched a little bit of the Kansas City game. They didn't design any runs for him except for 2 or 3 times where he was able to do the read option, get out on the boundary, really utilize his legs and run the football. And this is a perfect game for them to get right back into that mode from last season, because the see and chase linebackers that this Broncos team has right now, they're not going to be able to keep up with an elite athlete like a Justin Fields. And that's my big matchup to watch, is Justin Fields versus these linebackers.
Yeah. And I mean, we talked about it extensively. I mean, just making them think, trusting on Alex Singleton to, make mistakes when he has to think, and betting on Drew Sanders still developing and growing to the NFL aspect with what he's seeing and what he's reading and reacting to.
Yep.
That's a way for the Bears offense to start getting things together. Their defense isn't good, but their offense has been terrible. Justin Fields hasn't been coming along as a passer as they'd hoped. So that's what you want to do as the Broncos defense. You want to take away that run game because you want Justin Fields to pass the ball. and hopefully you can limit DJ Moore
Mm-hmm.
and not let DJ Moore take over the game. And I know a lot of people want to say that just put Patrick Surtain on DJ Moore. DJ Moore ate Patrick Surtain up last year against the Carolina Panthers when we played the Carolina Panthers. So it's not that simple. But you want to take the run game away. So that's why for the Bears, if you look at that, they should know, hey, they're going to want to take away the run game. Let's make things difficult. We have DJ Moore. Let's do an RPO into a receiver with a receiver screen option. Just give us options to try to run the ball, get the ball out quickly, and attack where the Broncos defense is the weakest right now, especially, I mean, if Justin Simmons plays, that's an intelligent guy. They have high football IQ they have in the secondary, but they still lack it up front. None of the Broncos front seven defenders have a super high football IQ. So you want to make them think. You want to make them guess. You want to make them try to, overthink things, which leads to mistakes. We saw, Miami did it, and it just happened to be that wrong call from Vance Joseph, exasperated by the Miami Dolphins making him think. And going back to this, Zach Powers real quick says, guys should definitely know in response to what I said earlier, where to line up. The way they were lined last week seemed way off from what we normally see. I wonder if Josie switches things at the line more often than we know. No. Defensive audibles don't happen as often as people like to think they do. The changes there were multiple reasons for the changes. The two biggest ones were the fact that Denver decided to go with 3 linebackers more often. So their base defense was more of a 4-3 look than, penny fronts type looks. Plus 2 down defensive linemen, 2 edges, 3 linebackers, because they wanted Drew Sanders on the field next there to Josie Jewell. And then there was a lot of just terrible play calling after terrible play call after terrible play call from Vance. And I mean, this started early in the game before Jewell was even hurt. Like every single one of the defensive play calls over the first, that first drive of theirs, the first 5 plays were bad play call after bad play call after bad play call. It was just consistently playing scared of the speed on the Miami Dolphins, which, hey, I get to an extent, but you're just completely forgetting of the element that they started to get the run game together the week prior against the Patriots, and you're ignoring that. So I don't think it wasn't so much Jewell as it was Vance Joseph just being terrible at what he is. And this week, we'll probably see more of what we saw the first 2 weeks because, hey, Josie Jewell's hurt. Now we only have 2 linebackers. We have a unfortunate but natural way to get Drew Sanders onto the field without having to change up what we're doing up front a little bit. You're muted. Lance, you're muted.
Sorry, I didn't realize that I muted myself. Eric, I'm going to get into a little bit of the hot take radio aspect of things. Not necessarily, I don't like to do this, but at the same time, I think that it's going to the Vance Joseph versus what Josie Jewell being on the field and the guys playing up, lined up out of position and stuff like that. And before I get here, we got Phil McLaughlin jumping in here. Good evening, Lance, Eric, and Deacon Scott. What keys favor us in this game? We'll get back to that here in just a second. When you watch that tape back, man, it just seems like these players don't trust what they're being told to do. They don't believe in this defense. They don't believe in the scheme. They don't believe in what their defensive coordinator is telling them to do. The effort was just not there. Is that something that you can coach back into this team, or is this a kind of a sinking ship here? I feel like after you get blown out by 70 points, you need a get right game. But if we see a lot of the same issues and mistakes that we saw against the Miami Dolphins against this Bears team, this could turn ugly very quickly, very, very quickly.
My issue with that line of thinking is, let's say they go against the Bears and everything starts to look right. How much money do we put on that? It's the Chicago Bears. This is a team that everybody is viewing as one of the 3 worst teams in the NFL. And Denver's not even talked about as one of the 3 worst teams, even after giving up 70 points to the Miami Dolphins.
They're the 2nd worst team in the NFL right now.
Everybody, even coming into the season, it was all depending on the defense is terrible. The offense isn't great. We got to see what Fields can do. DJ Moore is a help, but there's still Chase Claypool, who's absolutely god-awful. And Darnell Mooney, who's injured. So they had a lot of questions coming in, and none of them are being answered in a positive way. So they're viewed as one of the worst teams. So how much money do we put in? This is a get right game for the Broncos? How much weight do we put on a good performance from them, from this defense especially?
Mm-hmm.
That's the issue I have with this game.
Yeah.
Like, it is such a bad game with two bad teams. It shouldn't change anything for either of them if they walk out with a win.
Yeah. So back to Phil's question here, what keys favor us in this game? I think the deep passing game for Denver's offense should actually be fairly decent, because as good as Jaquan Brisker is playing in terms of filling in his run fits as a single high safety, he is definitely out of position. And if you want to take some shots here, I think Marvin Mims is going to have a huge game against the Bears defense. I think that, and this actually is a good segue. I think that while the Broncos pass rush or passing offense in terms of pass protection, the offensive line, they haven't really been able to shore up a whole lot up front. But this Bears pass rush is not necessarily great in terms of creating pressure. When they do create pressure, it comes very quickly, but they're not very consistent in when they do so. So I think that if you want to set up some deep shots against this Bears defense, you absolutely have the opportunity to. And if you can create some play action stuff, get Russell Wilson on the outside of the pocket with the running game, that's definitely going to be a big favor for this Broncos offense.
I'm going to push back on a little bit on that. This Bears pass rush is a lot better than people realize.
I'm not disagreeing with that.
Like,
they just don't win consistently enough. They win. They win quickly. They just don't win consistently enough.
They do win consistently, though. The issue is, so the average time to throw against the Chicago Bears has been like 2.53 or 2.47 seconds or something like that. It's been just under 2.5 seconds. Their longest one was 2.69 seconds by Baker Mayfield, where they pressured him 15 times in that game.
Yep.
They're getting pressure. The quarterbacks, it's just one of those situations where the quarterbacks are getting the ball out quickly. They're winning their one-on-ones, and every time the quarterback is there, like just a split second later, there's a pass rusher turning the corner. They're winning consistently. They're just the coverage unit, and this is where the biggest key for the Broncos is, in my opinion, is the secondary of the Bears, especially without Jalen Johnson and without Eddie Jackson, is they can't cover. Like, they're just not good at it. Even when Jalen Johnson and Eddie Jackson were out there, teams just went away from them. So it's a situation of basically it's the complete opposite in a way of what I've been saying about the Broncos. The Broncos corners aren't holding up well enough to where their lack of pressure doesn't really matter a whole lot, because if they're able to win their one-on-ones a little bit more to apply pressure, the coverage still isn't holding up to get the ball out. The Bears, they're at least getting pressure on it, but the coverage isn't holding up. They're netting a pressure every 2.57 seconds. That's their average time to a pressure, 2.57 seconds.
It's pretty quick.
The Broncos' average time to allowing a pressure has been 2.54 seconds. Russell Wilson likes to hold the ball for 2.93 seconds.
Yep.
So I don't think the pass rush for the Bears is a weakness for them, especially in this matchup. But the secondary is. This is definitely a game where, like we saw against the Chicago Raiders, the Las Vegas Raiders, quick passing game. Get the ball out quickly, because your receivers should be able to win quickly, and it's up to Russell Wilson to hit his back foot, get the ball out. That is an issue we have seen for him from his entire career. He likes to hold the ball longer. Take away that pass rush by getting the ball out quickly and attacking their just completely depleted secondary. No Kyler Gordon. He's on injured reserve. Eddie Jackson saw something today saying that he might end up on injured reserve with a foot injury, depending on a second opinion with that. Jalen Johnson's been dealing with a hamstring injury going back to OTAs. Greg Stroman is not good. And then Tyreek Stevenson is absolutely getting targeted and blasted in coverage. Like play after play, basically. Then you have your linebackers who are pretty good against the run, but they are terrible in coverage, especially when they're get matched up on a tight end. This is a game where having Greg Dulcich could really be a huge factor for him. So it's really more so for me. It's not the Bears pass rush. It's getting It's controlling them if you want to take deep shots, controlling them, and just attacking those corners with these receivers. Like, they have such a favorable matchup. All four of their top receivers, if you go and against look at their top four corners, Denver has the favorable matchup across the board.
Across the board. You're absolutely correct on that. I don't disagree with you at all. Troy Boer jumping in here with the $10 super chat, just saying wanted to listen later, wanted us to support, have a great show. Broncos win this week, and then they get their players back. Go Broncos. And Troy, I hope the Broncos do get a win this week. I don't know that they're going to. I believe this is actually truly a coin flip game, because I don't trust Vance Joseph in this defense to go out there and play against an explosive. What can be an explosive offense? Let me rephrase that before you destroy me. What can be an explosive offense? Because I'm not necessarily very impressed with what Justin Fields has shown either in terms of reading defenses, but when the plays are there and he hits them, they are absolutely there.
I want to clarify something about this. Greg Dulcich isn't good to go. I'm not saying he is. I'm saying this would be a good game to have him. He is on injured reserve. He has to miss what? He got put on for just before week 2, so he has to miss this week and next week as well. Before they can even think about coming off. I'm just saying this would have been a good game for Dulcich to be available, but
you're absolutely correct. I was watching the Tampa Bay game earlier, the Bears versus Tampa Bay. The Bears have a couple of linebackers that looking at TJ Edwards, I thought he had a pretty decent game, but they also run out number 57, Jack Sanborn. And when he plays in coverage against tight ends, holy crap, boys, there's a lot of ground to gain with tight ends over the middle of the field. There was a couple of different plays, and Baker Mayfield, for as good of a game as he had against the Bears, missed so much yardage over the middle of the field to his tight ends. Cade Otton, a guy that, Eric, I know you were very high on coming out of Washington a couple of years ago. This dude ran wide open over the middle of the field, I'll bet you 15 times, with no one around him, and the primary coverage player across from him was either Jack Sanborn or TJ Edwards. This secondary with their linebackers in coverage is garbage. It's awful. Absolutely terrible. And the Broncos don't have a player that can utilize that speed and ability with the big body over the middle of the field right now. Troutman can be decent there, but if they had Greg Dulcich and Russell Wilson throwing over the top like that, dude, it would be so much fun to watch, and we don't get to see that, and I'm sad. I'm sad now. I actually made myself sad thinking about the possibility of seeing Greg Dulcich in those flowing locks running roughshod through this Bears secondary, because it was going to be awful, man.
I don't think people realize how much he's been missed with this offense, and how much he was missed, especially against the Raiders. The offense was so good. Like, even the first few plays off script, when they were without, when they still had Dulcich, they were still looking good. And then they lose Dulcich, and now it's just like they're only good on script. Like, and that's the way it is. Like, there was a tweet out there that was talking about EPAs on and off script. Broncos EPA on script, second best in the NFL.
Yep.
Expected points added per play, EPA. They were behind the Miami Dolphins, and this is counting the Week 3 game. Significantly behind the Dolphins, but they were the second best offense in EPA per play on script. Off script, they were the 6th worst. Like, two things can be true here.
Oh, absolutely.
Russell Wilson is looking better. Russell Wilson's stats are a little misleading, but they're really good. They're right there with career averages. He's not the issue with the offense. He's part of it, but he's not the issue. There's just so many issues with it, and I think the biggest issue with it starts at Sean Payton and with what they are asking of this offense. They built this offense to be a bully ball offense.
Run the damn ball.
And he doesn't stick with the run. Against the Commanders and against the Raiders, even when they had the lead, they went away from the run early. And against the Raiders specifically, the run was still doing good. They just weren't running. And the Raiders were able to make their way back.
Well,
And that's not saying run every single play of the game, but run more than 8 times over 4 stinking drives when you have a lead.
Just commit to it. And what Washington was able to do early in that game, after the first couple of drives, Denver was having their way up front, quite honestly, against the Washington Commanders. But then after the first couple of drives, they really did a great job. Deron Payne, Montez Sweat, Chase Young, they did a great job against the run. But the Broncos ran the ball 8 times after they were up 21-3. Run the goddamn ball. Can we please start running the football? This is going to trigger me. It's going to let me go on my rant really fast. You spent $87.5 million on a right tackle. You spent $46 million on a left guard. All the money you've invested in this offensive line in Garrett Bowles, a 3rd round pick in Quinn Miners, Cushenberry. We can get into that later. I don't give a damn. You invest another running back in Samaje Perine. You go out and get 2 different tight ends that excel in the blocking game, and Chris Manhertz, and we can go back and forth on Adam Troutman all we want to. And you run the ball 18 to 22 times a goddamn game. What the hell's wrong with you? Run the freaking football. Get this offense going the way it's supposed to be, because it's designed behind the run. It's designed behind the play action pass. It's designed to get Russell Wilson out of the pocket, move the pocket around, get defenses off balance. And they're not doing it. And it pisses me off. I'm sorry.
And Keyshawn, they can't run when the defense is sabotaging them to get scored on. The point is, and that's what I said, is even when they have a lead, when you have a lead, you run the ball still because it helps chew up clock.
They're not doing that.
They're going away from it. And it's leading to 3 and outs and punting and turnovers. They're not sticking with the run even when they have the lead. And that is the issue. Obviously, when they're down 56-13, they're not going to keep running the ball.
Mm-hmm.
We're throwing the Miami Dolphins game out of here. Even though they went away from when they actually could realistically run the ball, they didn't against Miami, but they ran the ball more often when they should have been, not running the ball against Miami.
Yep.
They ran more in the second half of that game than they did in the first half. They ran more when they were down by 3 scores than they did before that.
Why?
That is the issue that we're getting at.
Here's
if you're going to build up to be a bully ball offense where you're going to build off the run game, let the run game dominate, wear down defenses, and build your shots off of that. You got to do it. You got to do it when you have the lead, and they're not doing it. I understand the defense is scoring. We can have two mutual discussions here about the defense sucks and the offense has their issues that are still hurting the team. Both are true. Just because the defense sucks doesn't mean the offense doesn't have their issues.
Yeah.
They're near the bottom in 3rd down percentage. They scored 3 times against the Raiders after failing on 3rd and 4th down, only to kept alive by a penalty. This offense isn't good on 3rd down either. It's another issue with this offense. We can talk about the issues with the offense and still acknowledge that the defense sucks and that they can still lose you games, but doesn't mean the offense still can't do better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm so tired of this one-sided conversation of what's a dichotomy of issues. There's what, 50 to 100 different issues for this Broncos team right now. I don't think that this coaching staff is putting these players in the right positions to succeed, just plain and simple, offensively or defensively. You're not playing to your strengths. Your effort defensively, your effort offensively is absolutely atrocious. You're down several key players because of injuries. That's a major issue. You still have issues with Russell Wilson and identifying what's going on in front of him, playing with timing, playing with accuracy, throwing the football, playing with just making the right decisions. You still have issues defensively in the secondary with communication, allowing free runners over the middle of the field and then not chasing them down to make tackles. You can talk about a million different issues for this Broncos team, and it's so incredibly frustrating. And you cannot be wrong about any of them. But everyone wants to die on this hill that Russell Wilson sucks, or it's only Vance Joseph, or the talents. Everyone has a say here. And we've got to get to the center of this issue and find out what the hell is going on here, because this Broncos team, I think they're going to lose. I picked them. I picked this Broncos team to spoil everybody's surprise here. I picked the Broncos to win 17-9 against the Chicago Bears in our Mile High Huddle pick'em. I'm thinking they're going to lose this game. I really do believe the Broncos are going to lose tomorrow, or on Sunday, excuse me. I do think they will lose this game because it's a comedy of errors from front to back. And I think that the Chicago Bears, listen to Luke Getsy and take it for what it's worth. It's coach speak. They're working on something special, something that they didn't do against Kansas City, something they didn't do against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We're working on something special. We've got something special planned up for this Broncos team. This Broncos team. I think they're going to start running Justin Fields this week. And if they do that, if they start making Justin Fields a focus of the running game against this Denver Broncos defense, it's a boat race. Chicago will win by 10. I firmly believe that. Absolutely. We got K-Hop jumping in here saying, dang, Lance, so negative. Why not? Why not be negative here? You lost 2 very winnable games on your home field against the Raiders, who were terrible. The Washington Commanders, who went into Buffalo and got boat raced. They lost 38-0 before they finally kicked a field goal at the end of the game. And they scored 35 points on this defense. 35 points. And you're expecting me to be positive about anything that's going on with the Broncos right now? I'm sorry. I'm just speaking facts. This team is bad.
Guys,
they have no direction.
If you're going to sit there, like, Lance has the right to his opinion just as you guys do as well. Coming in here and start calling him a punk and stuff like that, it's not acceptable, guys. Lance is free to his opinion. I don't always agree with him. And he and I, we go back and forth all the time. And it's just the same way I have my opinions. We're allowed to have them just as you guys are. So just watch it a little bit here in the chat a little bit. But anyways, going back to this is like, there's so much dysfunction with this team that it is realistic to see a loss to the Bears. Especially like the Bears offense can attack where Denver's weakest at. And their defense can attack where the Broncos offense is weakest at. It comes down to where talking about their defense against the offense comes back to Russell Wilson holding the ball long. And like, I get that the stats look good. Like, I get it. The stats look good. Russell Wilson, when you watch him, he looks good. He looks better than he did last year. He looks like a top 12 quarterback in the NFL. But it doesn't mean everything's perfect. When you go back and watch him off script, watch him after the first 3 or 4 drives. He's missing reads still. He's holding the ball way too long on plays where where they're timing plays. And one of them comes to mind, it was against the Washington Commanders. It was a 3rd and 9, and Russell Wilson hits Jerry Jeudy behind for a pickup of 7.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because Russell Wilson hits his back foot, holds the ball for an extra half second longer, then rips it, and it leads to a 4th down punt.
Yep.
Those are issues with Russell Wilson that you can't have when your passing game is built off of that.
Yep.
These quicker passing games. If you're not going to be running the ball like you built your offense to do, if you're going to try to play a quicker passing game, you need your quarterback to play with better timing.
Exactly. Yep.
And when I talk about Russell Wilson stats being a little misleading, that's part of it. He has had so many catches be caught because even when his placement was terrible. And I'm not trying to sit here and slander Russell Wilson. I am super happy with the improvements that he's shown from last year.
Oh, he looks 100 times better.
Don't get me wrong. He is so much better than last year. Context wasn't hard to be, but this is a quarterback that you can, for the most part, live with. But there are still those slight. No, let me finish. There are still those slight improvements he needs to make until you can 100% live with him playing like that.
I don't disagree with anything you just said there, Eric. And I'm sorry I went on a rant and pissed everybody off, and I'm getting a lot of love.
No, don't apologize. Don't apologize.
Like I'm getting a lot of love. Some clown decides to come at me. Whatever, that's fine. I'm just passionate about this. I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. Russell Wilson is playing probably 100 times better than he did last year. And it's amazing to watch. He's not playing with the perfect timing. I think that there's some, I don't want to call it miscommunications, but just some timing issues he's got to work with. And he's got to, like you said, hit the back foot, throw the slant. That's something I've had an issue with him for the last 3 years. Before he was a Denver Bronco. Hit your back foot, hit the slant on time, put it on him, and let the guy go and do his job after the catch. I know exactly what player we're talking about with Jerry Jeudy. I was like, dude, you cannot be serious. You missed that ball so far behind him. And after that, that's just accuracy. He struggles with short game accuracy. And you said, no, it's timing. You go back and watch that play. Absolutely. He holds on to the football and throws it late. It's a consistent issue all the way across. You've got guys that don't know how to run their routes on time. And I'm talking specifically to Jerry Jeudy on this one too. This dude does not know how to run his routes on time. You've got Russell Wilson, who doesn't know how to get rid of the football on time. Cortland Sutton, who can't figure out how to play with physicality at the catch point right now. You've got an offensive line that can't communicate pass-off pressures and pass-off protections on twists and stunts. Nobody is playing well. It's not a one-sided – it's not a one –
I'd push back on this. Here. There are a few people playing well, but they just get overshadowed. No, Surtain's not playing well. Let's get out of it.
I think he's playing okay.
Dude got cooked by Robbie Chosen. By a practice squad call-up because Jalen Waddle was out. I guess I'm being hyperbolic here. Patrick Surtain is a very good corner and everything like that. He's mostly playing good football, especially in coverage. He really shut down Devontae Adams when he was on him week 1.
He did.
There's that stat going around about what he allowed to Tyreek Hill. That's just completely wrong. But like people are ignoring the fact that he got beat by Robbie Chosen for a 68-yard touchdown with the backup quarterback in. Like, let's not forget that. And also, let's take a look at his run defense. That's been problematic the last 2 games.
Yeah, we got a Facebook user jumping in here, and I agree 100% with this comment. I'm not sure exactly who this is. Sorry, I'm heated right now. I'm actually kind of pissed off. We got a Facebook user here. Thank you for joining us. Can't see it on our end, but thank you for this because I agree 100% here. Marvin Mims, rookie wide receiver Marvin Mims is playing well. The problem is it's Jody. It's Jody Moncrief. They're not using him, guys. They are not playing Marvin Mims. He has 17, 16, and 15 snaps over the first 3 games.
Ready for 14 this week?
Exactly. Why? So why are we not seeing this guy out there and the explosive potential that this guy has? If you need a spark plug to ignite your offense, Marvin Mims is the guy. He is winning in one-on-one coverage. He's winning over the middle of the field. He's winning on kickoffs and punt returns. This dude, get the ball in his hands and let him play the damn game.
So I want to come back to that, but first we have Zach Phillips coming in. We were down 40. Who started playing. I've seen this defense of Patrick Surtain for the touchdown a lot.
Don't care.
I don't think saying that the guy quit on the field is the defense you think it is.
Yeah.
Surtain didn't quit on the field. I have a lot of issues with him. There's a lot of issues that he has with his game, primarily against the run for the most part. It wasn't the best matchup because he's fast, but he's not overly quick in coverage, and it's created openings over his career. But to sit there and come in and basically say that he quit on the play because he was tired of playing, that's not the defense you think it is. It just makes him look even worse than saying he got beat.
Yeah. So let's go back to Marvin Mims really fast because I retweeted this.
And I want to go back. I have something else I want to say on this. Is mental apps being down 40? No, it wasn't. He played his coverage right. He just got beat. It's that simple. It sucks. That is something that does happen. I know Van Joseph made a big thing about what part of his comments were with the defense. Stuff like that happens. Well, no, 70-point bombs, shellackings don't happen. Mm-hmm. Your best corner getting beat, that happens occasionally. Yeah. Happened to Champ Bailey, happened to Deion Sanders, happened to Darrelle Revis. It happened to the greats. It happened to Patrick Surtain, and there's nothing wrong with saying that. We don't have to defend it. We don't have to sit there and say he quit on the field. We don't have to say that it was a mental lapse when it clearly wasn't. We can just say Surtain had a bad play and he got beat.
Yep.
As for Marvin Mims, I was talking earlier about issues with this offense. I will never get by the fact that this is a team that is lacking explosive plays. Explosive plays are executed 20-yard plus gains. They have had plenty of opportunities for them that have been missed, partially due to Wilson, mostly due to pass protection, sometimes due to receivers. They have had these issues getting them. The guy who has been the most reliable guy getting you your explosive plays is not seeing the field. In an offense where you are struggling to generate explosive plays at a high enough number. Why? When your other receivers, not that his other receivers are playing, or the other receivers are playing terrible. Cortland Sutton, minus the 2 fumbles here, is playing really good. He's getting open consistently. This is probably the best we've seen from Cortland Sutton since his injury, minus the 2 fumbles. Jerry Jeudy, he's playing good. He's cut back a lot of his TikTok routes that he was doing, where it's taking him a little bit extra time to get going, and he's just going. Brandon Johnson, he's playing well as a receiver. Blocker, completely different story. But Marvin Mims has been your best receiver on the field, and you've played him one last snap than the previous week. And against the Miami Dolphins, especially, in a game where you were getting shellacked.
Boat race.
Shellacked is my word of the week, by the way. I'll drop it multiple times in this. We'll close out with me saying shellacking 13 times in a row. But anyways, in a game where the defense was getting whooped as much as it was, like, you have the fact that Marvin Mims saw the field 15 times and wasn't being utilized. He had the most explosive play for the Broncos.
Two most explosive plays. The two most.
Yeah, I was talking about specifically on offense, but yes, he had the 2 most explosive plays on the day, including the kick return. But on offense specifically, where he saw 15 snaps, he had the most explosive play of the day by far, and he only played 14 more snaps outside of that. Like, it's an issue there. You got to get him involved a little bit. Yeah. Sutton dropped the touchdown. He did. He also had 2 other touchdowns that got called back because of penalties. And I know a lot of people want to say the OPI on Brandon Johnson was a bad call. It was the right call, guys. He leaned into it. He leaned into it. That's the issue. The defender was moving, but he lowered his shoulder just a tad and leaned into it. It was the right call. And then it was very obvious. What was it? False start, right? Or holding?
No. So he had a
illegal formation. Not being set. Brandon Johnson didn't get set before the thing. That's 100% on Johnson as well. Like, get set. Like, Cortland Sutton's playing good football. Like, it's just and Dylan Von Ark's come in saying, I think the call could have gone other way. Yeah, that's where I'm at. If they didn't call it, then they should have been left. Then I'm fine with it. But they called it, and I can see why they did. And the reason why they did is he leaned into it, even though the defender was moving. Because the general rule is, if you run into the defender and the defender is not moving, it's obvious pass interference. If the defender starts to move on those types of plays, on those pick routes, those rub routes, then you typically can get away with it because you still have to allow the receiver to run the route.
Right.
But the receiver still can't lower into it. They can't throw their shoulder behind it, kind of thing. So like, it's just, and then also real quick on that, talking about going back to explosive plays real quick. Got to get Jaleel McLaughlin the ball number a little bit more without throwing him to the wolves. 2 of his first 3 plays were called back because of penalty. But over those first 3 touches, all against the Raiders, it was like a -4 yards, -7 yards, and like -3 yards. Like, he just got completely thrown to the wolves there. Like, it was 2 of them where Russell Wilson being under pressure and literally saying, here, you get hit instead. Real quick before I pass it off to you. Guys, I'd like to see Mims more also. Are they trying to take it slow with him? Maybe because most of the team is not doing good. I can't imagine they're taking it slow with him, because he has things down. Maybe the playbook might be a little bit more limited with him, but like, you're moving the ball, you're generating explosive plays, and you have a consistent speed threat who can do one thing extremely well that works well with what Russell Wilson does. So I'll take that trade-off, even if you have to cut back the playbook a little bit when he's on the field.
Right. And go off, King, by the way. Say your piece. Like I got to say mine there for a minute and go off. I'm going to piggyback on here. We had a comment a little bit above talking about liking to see more of Marvin Mims. I don't remember who it was, but it was talking about giving him the ball on like jet sweeps and reverses and end arounds and stuff like that. The Broncos did that against the Washington Commanders. They did it twice. The first one went for 8 yards. The second one went for 2 yards. But just on Mims and the explosiveness that he brings to this offense. This is from Scott Barrett of DFB on Twitter. The longest gains of the 2023 Denver Broncos season. Number 1, Marvin Mims, 99 yards, kick return. Number 2, Marvin Mims, 60-yard reception against the Miami Dolphins. Number 3, Marvin Mims, 53 yards against 60 yards against the Washington Commanders for a touchdown. Number 4, Marvin Mims, 53 yards against the Washington Commanders. Number 6, Marvin Mims, 45 yards. Number 7, Marvin Mims, 38 yards. Number 8, Marvin Mims, 30. Number 9, Marvin Mims, 30. Number 10, Marvin Mims, 25. The only 2 plays, number 5 and number 6, Brandon Johnson for 50 down the right sideline against the Miami Dolphins, and Jerry Jeudy over the middle on a catch and run for 46 yards. I believe that was against Miami as well. Marvin Mims has 9 of the top 11 most explosive plays on this Broncos team. He has 7 catches and 5 punt returns. 1 kick return as well. Why do you not put this guy? I'm done. I can't do it anymore. I'm done. You guys just witnessed me break down and like lose all interest in everything anymore. I am not
the big play to Johnson was the Hail Mary touchdown.
Okay, so is Jeudy down the right sideline? Excuse me. Yes, you're right. You're absolutely correct. You guys just witnessed me break down. Like, I am not I'm a guy. We all sit here. We love to talk football. I cover this team for a living. I love breaking down the NFL. I'm not Sean Payton. I'm not Joe Lombardi. I'm not anywhere close to Dove Valley. I don't even live in the same state. And even I can identify that not getting Marvin Mims on the field for more than 15 snaps a game when you need explosive plays, and every time he touches the goddamn football, it goes for 30 yards. Why? Erick, make it make sense, dude. Make it make sense. I don't get it.
Well, on the things I don't get the just pure usage of Javonte Williams in the running game, basically. Don't get me wrong, he's doing well. Yeah, but they don't mix it up at all.
It's all inside zone. Where's some stretch to the outside? Let him use his vision and the tackle breaking ability. Like,
why do I hate screens? This will be the last thing we go because the guys we're gonna end it with my rant about why screens are stupid.
This is gonna be a 20-minute conversation, by the way.
No, it'll be pretty quick. Screens are basically should be viewed as an extension of the run game, not a pass play. First of all. But they're viewed as a pass play, and they have one of the lowest EPAs per screen that's ran compared to any other type of play. They're ineffective, and 9 times out of 10, and I might even go 99 out of 100 there, the defense blows it up. You can execute some great screens. Some teams are so much better at it than others. Mm-hmm. There is just so much that has to go right for a screen to be done perfect, to be, effective. So much that has to go right. Mm-hmm. And for the Broncos, they don't have those pieces. You need your interior offensive line to sail past so you can sit there and bait the defensive lineman up far enough field and then slip behind them. And then you have to be able to have them hit moving targets and know their landmarks. Broncos don't have that. Ben Powers and Quinn Miners, like, they could do it, except that they're a little heavy-footed. They're not quick enough for it. Lloyd Cushenberry's awareness is about I don't know. I don't even know a good analogy for this one. Lloyd Cushenberry has no awareness whatsoever.
This is a paint roller. This is a paint roller. That's Lloyd Cushenberry's awareness. It's a paint roller, guys. If you can see this.
But anyways, and then on that is Lloyd Cushenberry just has no awareness. It doesn't even matter on his screen. We saw that a lot in the preseason. They ran so many screens, and most of them, you could look at Lloyd Cushenberry being the reason why they didn't work. On top of that, is the Broncos don't use the right people for their screens.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's just a bit of an issue. It's just a lot of execution issues. I hate screens. They can be exciting when they're executed right. It's just that a lot of teams, a lot of offensive coordinators, play callers, is when a screen doesn't work, we want to run it again and again and again and again and again and again until you get that one screen. There'll be times where they run 10 screen plays to get one somewhat decent play as a result out of it. And we kind of saw that. Javonte Williams had one effective play out of a screen last week, and they just kept running it. And real quick, Russ threw an int on a screen pass last game, to be honest. No. The interception he threw was a terrible decision by him, and it should not go unnoticed about why it was such a bad decision by him. This is the last thing about it. It wasn't a screen pass. He was just trying to dump it off. Pressure was coming. Pocket collapse. He was trying to dump it off to Adam Trotman, just for a short game, keep it alive. The issue is the Miami Dolphins were running a twist. Deshaun Hand was standing in front of Russell Wilson, between Russell Wilson and Adam Trotman, engaged with Lloyd Cushenberry, as Quinn Miners was on his knees trying to handle the pass around by whatever the other defensive tackle was. I don't think it was Wilkins.
It wasn't Wilkins. It was dang it.
Was it Davis?
I thought it was
it wasn't Zach Seiler. It wasn't Zach Seiler.
Right.
I'm pretty sure it was the one Alabama con, Raekwon Davis.
Okay, yeah.
Anyways, beside that, going off topic here. So Deshaun Hand was engaged with Lloyd Cushenberry, standing arms up in front of Russell Wilson before he decides to throw the ball. It's like Russell Wilson was blind and didn't even see the defensive lineman standing there with his arms up. So people can sit there and talk about how the pocket broke down. Valid point, but Russell Wilson still decided to throw the ball when the defensive lineman was standing there in front of his face, with his arms up in the air, which led to it being batted and then intercepted by Emmanuel Ogbah.
Yeah,
that is 100. That is one of those plays that is, despite other issues, that falls on the quarterback for even trying to make that throw.
Yeah,
it was absolutely terrible.
Yeah. Last point on screens, really fast, and Erick's going to disagree with me on this, but I'm going to put my opinion out there because I've done it well enough, at least tonight. A big part about screens is timing. How much have you set this up? Like Erick said, it's not calling screens over and over and over and over and over again because you're in third and long situations and you just need to dump a screen off. Why do the Philadelphia Eagles? Why do the Kansas City Chiefs? Why do teams like, even when Aaron Rodgers was in Green Bay, the Green Bay Packers? Why do teams like, say, the Seattle Seahawks? Why do those teams like that, the Seattle Seahawks with Russell Wilson back 2019, why do these teams have great screen games? Why do the San Francisco 49ers have great screen games? It's because they are timed well. They are executed well, but they are also timed well. They are running screen plays. Exactly. And you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Executed from the top down. I'm talking about timing, specifically when do you run these plays? When you know that you have either like
you set them up.
You've set them up. You've set up it for it to be a specifically pass rush heavy situation. We have already gouged you, and you think that we're going to take a shot. You think we're going to take a shot downfield. Why would we run a screenplay behind that? Because you are rushing you're rushing upfield to try to get after the quarterback, and you are playing zone coverage on the backside and trying to get guys deep as possible. And then you get the pass rushers up the field, the zones open up, you have open space all over the place, and you dump it off on the screen. You don't run screens all the time. You have to execute them right up front, and you have to time them correctly. And the Kansas City Chiefs, their screen game is so elite because Andy Reid has everything set up so well, because you have to rush the passer. You have to get after the quarterback, and they're going to bail off coverage, run everybody deep. Here's a screen underneath. You got blockers out front, and it goes for 35 yards every damn time. Yep. The Broncos don't have that right now. They don't. They just don't. Sorry.
Another issue I have with screens real quick before I go on to this. And I know this, we're already going to get a dissertation in the YouTube comment section because we said some negative things about Russell Wilson, as we do every single time we say something negative about Russell Wilson. Full on like 3,000 word things about why we're stupid about it. But anyways, part of my issue with screens, and this does fall on Russell Wilson a little bit, is coaches get a little too cute to him with them sometimes. Denver had this issue against the Dolphins. They had a screen set up perfectly, but it was we're going to fake a screen only to run a screen to the other side. Well, pre-snap read is the Dolphins were set up to handle the screen off the right. It was a fake wide receiver screen to dumping it off to, I think, was a short tight end screen. The Dolphins were playing heavy to the right, where they were going to set up the tight end screen. They were playing light for the wide receiver screen. It was 3-on-3 out there for it. Everybody was playing bunched up or heavy right on the Miami Dolphins defense. This is an issue with Russell Wilson where he needs to see it. The wide receiver was waiting for it. The wide receiver saw that they had the advantage and was expecting it, and Russell Wilson fakes it and still turns. That's a situation where you got to get it out there. Bradley Chubb was coming around the corner, but there was still a throwing lane where Russell Wilson could have gotten that ball out there to the receiver, and he walks in for a touchdown. Denver ended up, I believe it was the thing where they got great field position. I can't remember if it was off the 4th and 1 that Miami failed to convert, where they ended up punting, or if it was one of the plays where they ended up with the field goal. I can't remember exactly which drive it was.
It was the 4th and 1 drive.
But it's a situation where Russell Wilson has to make that read pre-snap, something he has struggled with, to sit there and be like, all right, I'm not going to deal with the fake on the backside. I'm just going to hit the wide receiver screen. That's where the favorable matchup is, and we got to go do it. And this goes back to the whole thing about the issues with the offense. Russell Wilson, and I'm really getting tired of the phrase, is not the problem. Like, when you're scoring 15 second half points, everything on offense is part of the problem. And it's not just one thing that is the problem. It's everything. Lack of commitment to the run game, lack of certain personnel usage, lack of explosives, quarterback play, offensive line play, receiver play. It's a little bit of everything.
Yep.
Russell Wilson looks improved. There are still areas that he can still do better and, help this offense be even better and look even better than it is.
Yep.
Like, it's a solid offense, but they have their issues that this team has to overcome. And that is led by Russell Wilson, where their his EPA specifically plummets after the first 20 plays of the game.
Yep.
He is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, if he played like he did on the first 20 plays, every single play for the whole season, easy MVP.
Yep.
Probably throwing, close to 6,000 yards, 50 touchdowns. Like, his play is phenomenal on the first 20 plays.
Yep.
Once you get off those 20 plays, though, his play plummets. And it's not just him. Again, it's the offensive line. It's the running game. Everything seems to take a significant step back when you get off the script. And that is something that Sean Payton has to figure out what it is.
Yep. You're absolutely correct. This is going to be an overgeneralization, my last point here, and then we'll get out of here. Overgeneralization of sorts. If you take away the first quarter and a half of the Washington Commanders game, where the Broncos were up 21-3, take away just that portion of this season, the Broncos have scored 16 points, 12 points, and 13 points in 10 quarters of football. 10 quarters. 16 points, 12, and 13 is the Broncos offense. 25 plus 16, 41 points in 10 quarters, guys.
Uh-oh. That's broke his
offense
internet.
or absolve them of issues. Did I are you there? Can you hear me now?
you froze right there. But guys, I mean, we can go on about it. There's so many issues with this team.
Yeah,
and don't get me wrong.
41 points in 10 quarters, guys. 41 points in 10 quarters.
We are not trying to say Russell Wilson is the biggest issue on the offense. That is not the point we are trying to make. But Russell Wilson is part of the problem with the offense. And DH3 comes in. Sometimes you can simply overthink. Russ is top 10 in every statistical category because of what he's done on the top 20, on the first 20 plays.
Yep. Cool. Put points on the board.
Listen to what we're saying here. Multiple things can be true at once. And yes, touchdowns have been called back. Touchdowns have been called back, which is part of the issue with the whole offense. It's not just Russell Wilson. There are also times where Russell Wilson has missed plays. Like, I know a lot of people against the Raiders, they want to put it on what's his face, the one wide receiver, Philip Dorsett. That one big play. I know a lot of people want to put it on Philip Dorsett. When you go back and watch that play, and I think it was either Kurt Warner or JT O'Sullivan who broke down that play. And the bigger issue with that play was Russ, because his timing was bad and his placement was bad. And Philip Dorsett had to adjust to make the catch on a play he shouldn't have had to adjust. But we are not saying that it's all Russell Wilson. We are not trying to put it all on Russell Wilson. There are multiple issues with this offense that need to be talked about.
Yes, absolutely. I'm seeing this it sounds like a Russ vent show and stuff like that.
Okay,
it's not.
No, we're not talking about Russ. We're talking about the offense in general. And because the issue that we are having is that everyone is sitting there saying that this is all the defense. The offense is problematic, and everybody on offense shares part of the blame. There are a lot of people who want to sit there and just say that it's all Wilson's fault, and they are wrong. It is not just Wilson's fault. There are people who don't want to put any blame on Russ, and they are also incorrect. Part of the blame does go on Russ. It's just when you score 15 points in the second half, 15 points over 6 quarters of football, everybody on offense has an issue, including the coaches. That is the only thing that we are trying to say here. And we are highlighting specific plays about Russell Wilson. But these are, in total, over all 3 games, I can think of maybe 10 to 15 plays that I would put strictly at Wilson's feet in a negative way. But there are probably 15 to 20 plays that I would be like, that play happens because of Russell Wilson.
Yep. Yes. And you can blame Cortland Sutton for fumbling the football. You can blame him for dropping the football in the back of the end zone. Should have been a touchdown. You can blame, and you should. That's a part of it. Like Dylan Von Ark says, and I hope that everybody understands this. It's the overarching theme here. It's a total offensive failure. It's everyone contributes. It's a total failure from the top down. Head coaching, offense, defense, Russell Wilson, I almost cussed. Randy Gregory on defense has been literally non-existent. Okay? This pass rush can't get home. They can't get after the quarterback. They can't stop the run. They're 32nd against the run right now because they gave up 350 goddamn rushing yards. We're not blaming any one thing. We're pointing out several different factors in this whole thing. It's not one thing. You can't blame it on Russ. You can't blame it on any individual. The whole team sucks right now. Yeah. And it sucks to cover them.
You can go back and you can find individual plays for every single player that on offense specifically, because part of the reason why I keep talking about the offense is because everybody knows the defense sucks. You can go back and you can find multiple plays on every single negative play for it. You can find multiple for everybody. Cortland Sutton dropped touchdown, 2 fumbles. Jerry Jeudy, there's a couple routes that he ran very lazily, and it messed up the timing with Russell Wilson. Talking about timing a lot with Wilson, it's not always him. Marvin Mims has been the only one that probably could be absolved of blame. You have Brandon Johnson, who's whiffing on blocks. You have Adam Trotman and Chris Manhertz, who are been absolutely disastrous as run blockers the last 2 games and completely non-existent in the passing game. You have Mike McGlinchey, who's just can't do anything in the passing game. He's getting beat often. You have Quinn Miners, who this last week absolutely got eaten alive. You have Lloyd Cushenberry, who shouldn't be starting. You have Ben Powers, who is really struggling in pass protection. Garrett Bowles has been by far the best offensive lineman, and he's been
still not good
actually playing. No, he's actually been playing pretty good football. Does he have his issues? Yes, but he's been playing pretty good football. He's been above average at least so far this season. You have running backs that are missing holes, missing lanes, running into defense. Part of that is because of the blocking up front, but part of that is because of their lack of vision. everything is wrong with it. You have a quarterback whose timing is bad. You have a quarterback who doesn't making proper reads. You have a quarterback who is missing very obvious throws that are set up. There was a play against the Raiders where they had a receiver. They baited it perfectly. They were in a cover 3 look, and the left corner pulls down to take the flat, and the safety takes the deep post or the deep corner, leaving a wide open zone. And Russell Wilson has time to throw it and fails to execute it, and instead dumps it off to the running back. And it ends up being high and incomplete. Like, you can find these individual plays for every single player on offense and highlighting ones about Russell Wilson, the guy who touches the ball every single play of the game. Like, if people can't handle just talking about a little bit of issues about the quarterback, like, I don't know what to say, because everything is an issue. Like, we don't have to sit here and pretend that the quarterback is completely absolved of all blame just because he looks better than last year.
Yeah. Yep.
Anyways, we got to get out of here.
Yeah, we got. I wanted to go on another tangent. I was going to say we need to get going, guys. You all stay safe and take care.
Send in your dissertations for the YouTube comments.
Hit us up on Twitter by following Erick at Erick Trickel and myself at Lance S_MHH. You all stay safe and take care. Have a great rest of your weekend. We will see you guys same time, same place next week, and hopefully we can talk about the Broncos winning a goddamn football game.